Okay, so we've got, as I said before, cage is all done completely, cockpit area, very happy with that is, how that's turned out. Now another little thing we've done here, we've done the fuel tank, we've put that together and we've got the little bulkhead on there, that's gluing, that's a little bit wet. Straightforward, two halves together, spray it red, fuel tank, and then we've got the bulkhead which was done with the green as well. Now, a couple of things we have to take care of at this point. We've got down in here, you might be able to see, we've got a little window. Now, I've put this one in already, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But it's important to get them in now, because otherwise you can have a real problem. You could get them in a little bit later on by coming up through this panel in the floor to put it in, but if you've already got that in, it'll be a little bit too late. Now, there's a couple of ways of getting these in. To start with, find your little parts you need. So, carefully clipping it out of the sprue. We come along, we're going to do a quick test fit and we're going to drop it in and make sure it goes in okay and it comes out flush and everything else. Now, as I say, a couple of ways of doing this. You could place it in just like this, come along with some mask oil and put it in, and then obviously you can paint over it, or you can actually put it in and then cut along the actual little panel line that you'll get in there and take care of it that way. The other way with these little pushing parts, the way I like to do it is get yourself a little bit of, you can either use 6mm, if I show you the 6mm way for a change, normally I would cover it all in one and then cut around it, which you've probably seen me do a lot before, but if we use the little 6mm, we can actually go across and put it right up to the edge, okay, then we're just going to push the rest down a little bit, okay, nice sharp blade, alright, and then we're just going to cut that around as you would do any other time. Okay, and pull that off, and we've got that one on. And if we do the same for the other side, so we just fold it down a little bit, cutting into it, cut that off, okay, then coming in again. Same thing, going to overlap the top part so the bottom is in just like that, okay, and then we'll just cut this again. Then what we'll do, we use a little bit of PVA. Usual thing. The reason for using a PVA glue versus your normal type of liquid cements and that is that they can fog parts, especially CA glue. So don't go running around with them with super glue, because whilst it'll do a great job fixing it in there, very very quickly you can end up with fogged up parts, and there's nothing worse when that happens because you have to get it out, and if it's fogged up it takes quite a bit to get them out. Okay, so we know it's all going to fit in there. Okay, so what we're going to do, going to go along and we're going to push that in. Now it does have to click in because it sinks in, if you know what I mean. It goes flush, so it's pushing out this top window area. And as you can see, it goes in looking like that. Now the reason for doing it this way, we just got a little bit of the gator glue on a cocktail stick. And what we do from the outside, not getting too close, just going to run a bit. The great thing about this gator glue and using this, if you do happen to go over, it will dry totally clear, and you're not going to have to worry about it ruining your glass work, because I've actually accidentally got it right in here before and it's absolutely been fine. So we're just going to get a little bit of this up in here. That's what we're doing. Just going to have a little bit. Just a little bit going up in this area here. If you have got it on your glass and you are a little bit worried about it, don't forget, damp cotton bud, give it a squish and get rid of it. So that's in like that, and then obviously it's on the outside. So if we show you on this one that's dried all already, what we'll be able to do is very easily lift this up. Now any that is bent over and gone down on the inside will pull away and be left clear. Trouble is, if you use mask oils and things like that, you tend to get, when you're pulling them out, sometimes it can peel the paint to the outside and things. It just makes a jagged type of edge. That's why I like to use this particular type. And as I say, this one here, if I bring your camera in a little bit closer, you can see it's dried totally clear, and we're happy with that. And whilst we're there, this gun has all been painted and is installed, because when you're on the outside it shows like that. So that's got to go in now as well, so don't forget that one. Okay, so that's those bits taken care of. So now we're ready for it to sort of come together. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take the fuel tank. This is a little bit wet. I didn't really want to do it quite so early, so I have to be careful how we handle this. Okay, and the fuel tank is going to fit in something like this. I'm just wondering how it sits, because there is no real gauge. So what we do, we're just checking how this is going to fit in. As I say, it's very hard to gauge how this goes in because there's not a lot there. So what we'll do, we'll come along with the cockpit section. Okay, got a little tab at the front, just down here at the front. What we're going to do, we're going to fit that one in first, click that one in, and then hopefully the others should all follow quite nicely. A touch of glue just to hold it in place. Okay, then in the real world what you would do now is wait a little bit just to let this harden off these two places. But obviously this is me, so we'll push ahead. What we've got is the top plate is lifted just a fraction off. Okay, now this fuel tank I'm hoping is going to sit in here just like so. And that is going to go in just like that. Okay, so what we do, we'll let those parts dry just for a moment. Okay, so as they're just sitting in and dry, we'll move this over. Now over on this one, we've got another clear part which we've actually done on the sprue. All we did, laid the tape over it and cut round it. And this is going to go onto this front one exactly the same way. So up nice and close, nice clean cut with that one. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're just going to sit this one in the bottom. Now this one you could get away with and put it in afterwards. Now the thing to remember, if we come along now and we put this in, which we can do, looks great, all the rest of it, when we unmask it, we're going to have these little guys under here are going to be the wrong colour. So what we need to do is first of all paint those tiny little areas up. So we just grab a little bit in our brush. Okay, same with this back part, all down here, because otherwise it's going to be grey plastic showing through and we don't want that. So it's important to make sure you do these. Okay, just let them dry and then we can fit that clear part into there, and then in a moment this section is going to go up underneath just like so. But it's important to make sure that that bit is painted, otherwise you will have the trouble with just having a piece of clear with grey plastic behind it, and that is not a good look. So okay, what we can do, we also need to fit on here. We've got up here is where the gun sits in, and that's going to go to the top. Okay, so that's a straightforward push in. So what we'll do, we'll pop that in, and we're just going to glue from the underside around the back. Then obviously what we'll do, we'll mask up this entire top area and we can come back and take care of it. So what we'll do, we're happy how all that is. He says that's not a good sign. Drop a glue along there. Try that again. It's because of the photo etch part is pushing it slightly out. That's okay, that's all back in now. And we glue on top of the photo etch and it will go through and in and take care of that. So that's one's done. Now this fuel tank here, to be honest, it's not the best fit in the world because you don't quite know how it's supposed to sit. So what we need to do is just jiggle this a little bit just to make this guy fit. So we just touch of glue just going down in here just to hold that side on, and we've got holding it and pushing it. In theory probably would have been better to do this afterwards. I do it before we installed this, but there we go, that's us for you. One thing you can depend on is us rushing ahead. Okay, then this part down the front, just in like that, we're going to put a drop of glue just in these areas. Okay, so I'm hoping now we'll be able to let go and things will sort of stay in place. So there we go, as you can see it sort of fits in like that. Now I need just to get a little bit of glue down the back part there, which is going to be quite tricky to do, so thank goodness for long sticks. So that's that one in. And then what we do, we're just going to put a touch of glue in at the top here. And what we do, we're just going to peg this, or clamp it I should say, just down, just to hold that in, and we'll do the rear as well, just to get those bits all sat in there nicely. Just pop that one down in there. Okay, so as you can see, we're all done and dusted in there. It's all fitting nicely. What happened was the little A-frame type of system that goes under the seat wasn't in the locating hole at the top behind here. That was what was pushing this area up. So like all model making, you know, it's one of those things, I was looking at it, it wasn't fitting, there's got to be a reason. So by having a bit of a spot round, I suddenly spotted it wasn't sitting in. As you can see, this top plate now fits perfectly, and so does this fuel tank. It all sits perfectly how it should be. So that's really that section done now. So what we can do, we can get ahead and get the two halves closed up. There again, if it doesn't just drop in and you're fine, then obviously there may be a reason to it. Now make sure your PVA glue areas are all totally dry before you end up putting these in. So what we're going to do, we're going to test fit it first, as we always do. Okay, we're just going to lean it gently over the top, alright, and then what we're going to do, we're just going to come along, nudge it together and see how it's fitting. Okay, and then we've got a small issue at the tail, so I've got an ejector pin mark back here somewhere that's not letting that check correctly, but we've got a nice ridge there, seems all to fit. Okay, looking underneath, all looks good. I'm quite happy that that will go together and will be fine when it's all done. So what we'll do now, we can just come along and take the top off. This clear part's already moved slightly, and that's what we were saying, the clear part on here pushed in slightly just then. Now if that had done when we were in there, we'd have had a real problem getting that in. So that's why I don't like to put clear parts into models before I know they're totally dry and in the right place, because if it does move once you're there, nightmare trying to get it out. So we'll let that one dry off totally. Then what we'll do, we'll put the halves on, whip round it with glue, and then we can take care of seam lines and things like that, and we can move on with wing sections and the other bits and pieces. Okay, so let's get these halves together. So as I said, we're coming along and we're just looking for a little area where it's not quite right, and I think I found it. There's a tiny little step. Sometimes you get little steps on these guys where, you know, obviously where you've removed the plug and things like that, and it's not quite right. So we just gently sand that back, and also have a feel, like quite a rough, it's where the moulds are, so there's one there, so we just sand that out, but run your finger along and try and spot these guys before they give you trouble. Got another one just here. Okay, this one will have to be a little bit more gentle, but it's usually mirrored on the other side as well, so we've got one there and one here, and this one had a little bit of flash attached to it as well. The reason why you get these is sometimes, like in this particular case, the Swordfish is slightly different from the Mark 1 to Mark 2. So what they do sometimes put a different tail on. So here you'll get a little seam line, and sometimes it's just not quite as perfect perhaps as others are. And I think this is the case with this one. The wingspan's a little bit bigger on this one. It's a slightly bigger Swordfish than the first one. You know, and there's a good example. You can see it quite nicely if we bring you in on the close-up cam. You might be able to see just down in here, just there underneath that tank, we've got a little bit of flash, and what that is, see it very, don't know if you have where you pick it up, but it's a little tiny step. And the thing is, if I sand it, you might be able to see it a little bit more, but there it is, and that's slightly higher than the other parts. And then obviously when you come to do it, you'll be able to see it just there now. See where it's darker and lighter? And that can cause all types of trouble when it comes to fitting. So we'll make sure they're out of the way. They're pretty common on kits. These, to be honest, are a little bit more than anybody else's. Okay, so there we go. Happy with that. Okay, very gently on with the top side. Okay, we're in. We're just going to give us a little nudge just to line it all up down in that cockpit area, down in the wells. So that's done. Now, my old favourite is rubber bands. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to pop one around the midsection just back here. Now, it's got a couple of little tips for using rubber bands, which I'll show you in a sec. So we've got one there, one there. Now remember, these glass parts, it's PVA, so we don't want to push them in too far. So what we'll use is just one more band here for the front. And I've already done what I said not to do, and I've just pushed that clear part just a little bit in, so you can probably see it in there. Luckily, at the moment, I can just still get to it from the inside. And this is what I was on about, guys. Don't rush it like I'm doing, otherwise you'll make a right mess. And that isn't sitting in there now. So I might have to get this all apart again and to redo it. But that's purely because I'm pushing ahead a little bit quicker. When you do it, just make sure they're all dry before you come in. So there we go. So what we do, we band it all together. And what we're looking out for is to make sure it is all together without any mass stress. Like just down here, we've got a small problem because this part is a little bit too low. So you might, as we lifted it, it clicked in. Okay, so I'm happy with how that is now. All the rest of it along here all seems to fit well. Small gap underneath. Now, might be a reason it's not quite fitting somewhere. It's going to be a real pain to try and see it. So what we're going to do is imagine it's fine. I'm going to grab a clamp. As I say, not the best clamps in the world these, but they get the job done. Might be a job for a band on that one. So what we do, grab another band. And what we do afterwards, we'll just cut these clean off because we're not worried about them. Okay, we're just trying to make sure this belly goes in. So what we can do, if we pull this one to the rear slightly, we can make sure that one's okay. And then what we're going to do, just so we're happy, just going to roll this one up a little bit, up to this clear area. Okay, now down the back here we don't have to worry about glue, so we're just going to come along, touch the glue and let it flow. So we just bring it out just a fraction. Coming along, touch, and let the capillary action pull itself along. Okay, now you might have noticed I didn't put in the little girder section, if you like, the metal work down in this part. Really, it does call for it. It says it's number E and 10 and 12 down there. That's really for the clear one. If you're using the clear sprue, you might want to put that in, and that way you can put some detailing in, as in cabling and things like that. Obviously we're not using it on this particular kit, so you can't see it, so I'm not putting it in a nutshell. Okay, so we're just going to move these parts up here, just the band up, walk it up a little bit. Quite a bit of a gap just down here, you might be able to see. Okay, just down the back here on this one. There again, let's just get it glued together for the minute, and we'll worry about gaps and things afterwards. So the main point, just getting it together. Okay, touch and flow on this rudder, and that's a job for this good old fashioned pegs. Can't go wrong with a peg. Upside down, and then gluing it in the inverted. That way the capillary action pulls the glue up and it doesn't run off, end up going down your rudder and making a mess. Inside this whole tail completely. So there's a lot of touch and flow with this rather than rushing it on. So that one's on just like that, and then peg in the bottom. So we've got these bits up here. It's going in there. Now we've got a few. The photo etch bulkhead needs to be pushed in and sorted out just a little bit. We'll take care of that once it's glued together. I'm more worried about getting it sealed up and job done for the minute. These here can be a rough job because we're not going to see because it's going to be covered up. Okay, this nose section we will see. So just taking our time, we're just going to do this front part first. And we'll worry about the rest afterwards. From this one we can come in the nose and do it from the inside. Alright. Happy with what we've got there just for the minute, so what we'll do, we're just going to go along this guy down here. You never know, it might pull together a little bit better. It's one of the turning points on the kit, this one. Once we've got the interior done, the rest of it should come together quite nicely. There we go. Don't be afraid to use this glue. The trouble with all liquid cements, and I've had troubles with them in the past, is that you don't put enough on them. When you sand it, you sand right the way through the thing and then end up with open plastic and you have to go around and re-glue it and stuff like that. So you might be thinking, oh, he's using a lot of glue on this one. Well, that's because these are quite big seams and they're great, easy ones to take care of. This is a nice big flat one here with a slight curve on it, so we can get in here quite easy and sand away and make it good without any real problems. So we're just going to do this back one as well. What we're going to do is leave this for an hour just to go all off everywhere. Go nice and hard, so we'll give that a bit of a squeeze just to get that one going. And what we're going to do, we're going to put some nice clamps on this, I think, just to help that one in. So what I tend to do is use an old trick I used to do. You do this and then get some rubber bands, and then if you're clever you can do this to it and it will hold it in place just like that. Okay, so you have a rubber band, but what it does, it pinches this corner and pinches that together. Then what you can do, you can just make sure it's in the right locations, just like that. Plenty of glue. Okay, so what we're going to do, that's that bit done now. We can leave that to one side. All the windows are still in place, which is some type of miracle. In the meantime, as that's drying, also what I've been getting on with here, we've got the rudder section. Very straightforward. Got these little guys down here, which should, if all gone according to plan, should still all be a nice push fit in here. Make sure you get the right way up. Which, when they were dry fitting, they went in lovely. There we go. One, we've got a rudder section, which is going to go on in a minute. And then we've got number two. Now before we put that in, we've got to pop a little part in there, which is, if I remember rightly, check where it is there, number C18 has just got to go in between these. Normally you glue them in, but I did it slightly back to front. So what we do, we've got him just here, but we need to pop that in before we put the rest in there. So we do that one. Small little clean-up job. Nice fit. Just the hole is a little bit too small, so we just pop our drill bit in there and just give it a bit of a rake around, just clean out the hole. I'm hoping there we go, that's in. Takes care of that one. Just like that, that's the tail assembly. Once that's dry, that just slides in. And then we've got the rudder section as well, which is going to go in there. So that's going to fit just over the top in there, just like that. And that's how that section goes. What we do, we're going to clean up these parts just before we glue them in and everything else, and take care of, got little seam lines running down here. This one, you're going to notice it. So what we need to do is get in here, sand them down. So we just take this back out just for a moment. Okay, so we're just going to come along, keep these flat, right the way around, like so. Then I've got the polishing one. It's quite handy for this one because it keeps it all nice. Okay, and then in. And takes care of that. So we'll get all of those cleaned up, all of those done. The other thing as well, we've got the underside guard that's going to go in under here, and you need to install the struts on there first to get that one in. So we've done that as well. We can get those bits in. The other bit I'm going to do in a moment here is this wing section. We're going to get that clear part installed into there, the other parts of the wings on there, and that can clip in underneath. As soon as we've done that, what we're going to have to do is remove the detail from some of the exterior of the model itself, because we're replacing them with photo etch parts. I think it's quite important because they're a lot more detailed than these parts, but I want to get rid of all of those bits done completely, then we can get on with the wings, and then we can move on to the all important paint.